Today is Thursday, January 19th, 2012. My name is Stephen Beacham.
I am Brian Tong.
And I am Molly Wood. Welcome to Buzz Out Loud, CNET's podcast of indeterminate length. It is episode something or other.
1577.
1577.
That's why you're here, Stephen. That's why we need you, boy.
I'm on the first computer ever, so my tabs don't load anymore. They just look at me like, "What do you want?"
What do you mean the first
computer
ever?
They're like a really old dog, and then you're like, come here, play." And then the dog's like,
It's like a 90s laptop.
"What do you want from me?"
You guys, it's been a long time since we've been in the studio together
really is.
again. It feels like a new experience.
And let me tell you, we're having a few problems with focus. Couple of problems because we kind of missed each other. It's not that often that we get to hang out in the room with nobody bothering us. But we're going to try. We're going to do our best to keep it roughly on track today.
Yeah, we'll do our best. Now, we want to start things off. You guys care about the tech news. We'll deliver it. The hottest news coming out today. Apple obviously had their announcements education-related out in New York. The big announcements here, Apple launches their iBooks 2, their new app that now supports digital textbooks. This is going to be a main thing. A lot of the larger publishers in education are behind this, like McGraw-Hill, Pearson, Houghton Mifflin, Harcourt. These are textbooks right now. iBooks 2 is a free update on your iPad or your other devices. You can go to the textbook section. Currently, the textbooks that they have, it's about only like maybe 10 to 12. They're high school textbooks right now. One of them is free, so you can kind of try out and play with the concept. It's the Life and Science from National, but this is one of the things that we expected to see because pretty much the story broke before the announcement even broke about what was going to happen. But
well, the funny thing is, I was saying before the show that the story kind of broke in the book.
A little bit.
In the Steve Jobs, right? Well, it just so happens that I am exactly at that point in the book where he's talking about wanting to redefine the textbook industry and about how it's an $18 billion a year market that is ripe to be disrupted.
Yeah.
And this seems to be the start of it.
Yeah, when you talk about, we'll just talk about the textbooks quickly and then talk about some of the other announcements. But when you talk about disruption, the textbooks are going to be priced at $14.99. And this is really where the publishers are trying to sell these books directly to the student. Now, if you talk about schools and high schools, typically the books, when they purchase them, are around $75 to maybe, let's say $75 to $100. But this is because they keep these books approximately around 5 years. And so that's where the cost of investment goes for
also,
each
it's
year.
a racket.
And also, it's also its own scheme. We've known it's its own scheme. So now they're saying, okay, we'll sell them directly to the student. The challenge is, a student still has to have an iPad.
Yes.
Right now, that's a $4.99 iPad. Will we see that price drop in the next coming months with a new announcement and maybe a smaller form factor? Probably, at least a price drop. But the entry level, the barrier to entry is still going to be you need to own an iPad.
Well, and then you will probably need to own several iPads. Like Lindsay Turrentine wrote a blog post today saying the devil is in the hardware when it comes to this. If schools are going to try to provide iPads, nightmare, because any piece of technology in a classroom lasts 6 to 12 months if you're lucky, because it just gets so beat up. But I wouldn't be surprised, and it's not a sort of a standardized experience. If the textbook is different on iBooks than it is in the classroom, it's probably not going to be accepted material for a curriculum. They have to find a way to standardize this experience throughout classrooms. Possibly that will mean, like you alluded to, a cheaper education-focused version of the iPad that maybe schools can buy. But it definitely, there's a lot of hurdles to get over. The best approach to this, obviously, would be to make textbooks that you can sell on iBooks that could also run on an Android tablet that were EPUB format. If these are lockdown formats, then I sort of feel like it is necessarily limited. Well, not necessarily limited, but it is, it's limited, and then its potential to me is really crippled. Like, I hope that these are open formats.
The other challenge you have here when you talk about standardization is the different experience. Not every student is going to plunk down the cash. Apple, we have seen in the past, they've worked on pilot programs with specific schools where they've equipped them, the entire schools with previously iBooks, laptops, and iPad programs with college partnerships. But again, just even from, my parents are both teachers, okay?
Yeah.
Now, Apple is ushering this new generation of teaching. We'll talk about iTunes U in a moment and some of the other, the iBook apps platform. But to have a teacher who's been working as a teacher, let's say we have plenty of teachers that are been, 20, 25 years working in the industry, and all of a sudden for them to change over and try and, my parents still are trying to learn how to program a VCR, right? I have to do that. And so you have this fragmentation or this split between generationally a teacher that has the time to invest in not only learning these digital tools, uploading this content. There's plenty of teachers that are more tech savvy than others, but I would say for the most part, it's like a 50-50 split. And even the people that are in the middle that are still kind of techie, but still old school, they're probably going to lean on their old school, I don't want to call it old school tendencies, on the tendencies that they've been used to using. So from a teaching experience, you can't say, even as a college professor, I'm going all digital. If you want to be in my class, you have to have an iPad. You have to be able to access and use iTunes. Even from that standpoint, it makes it a difficult situation. But I like the push.
Hurdles.
But yeah, there's a lot of hurdles for this to, like you said, get standardized.
I also really worry about this increasing. John Strickland put it perfectly, and I was going to say the same thing, which is I really worry about this increasing the digital divide among students. Because if it becomes the kind of thing where a teacher or a school says, okay, you can use that version of the book if you have an iPad, then you'll have rich kids in the school who have maybe a more interactive textbook, a more interesting learning experience, as opposed to kids who are not only lugging around the 35 or 40, they're getting the kind of scoliosis that you only get when you're carrying 85 pounds of books all day in a backpack, but they might have older versions that they're less engaged in, and suddenly you have that sort of economic divide dictating the pace of learning even more than it already does.
So these books are only available on iPads? So you can't buy it through the iTunes store and just use it on a laptop or something?
From what I haven't tried to buy it directly from my iTunes on my PC, but from what I gather, at least the textbook section is specific to iBooks.
Okay.
So we'll see how that shakes out. Also, do you want to say something?
I was just going to say they need to open it up for laptop users and other.
They really do.
At least open it up for desktop users too.
Yeah.
They didn't make any announcement related to that from what I saw or read. So maybe that's they can easily adapt that. So maybe that's something where they go later on in a month, like, you know what, we're also going to make this available to desktop users. That would at least help to some degree. But also we'll kind of pound through some of the other announcements that they did. Apple also announced their new iBooks author app for OS X. Now, you do have to be running Lion to take advantage of this. I thought this was pretty sweet. This enables, think of it, I like to call it Keynote/Pages for books.
Right.
So this uses very similar to the Keynote layout where you have, and there's templates to create your own textbooks, whether it's, geared towards science or math. But you could also, if you're a programmer, someone who wants to make like an elegant book, they're going to be able to allow you to code in JavaScript and HTML to create custom widgets to interact with these books. So I think if you want to talk about something that's going to change the game a little from a user experience and just from information and books, I think this iBooks author app, for special interest stuff. I think about video game guides. I think about specific topics that's, a publisher who's at home or an independent publisher who could really create some amazing stuff. And then you can directly publish this book to the iTunes the iBook store. I think this is pretty interesting and compelling to just from a creative standpoint, or bringing books to the prosumer consumer.
Amazon has
market.
something similar, which is self-publishing, but they don't have the ability to actually paginate, as far as I know, your own book, to really create your own super fancy book. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, it democratizes book creation, not just textbooks, right? Like any cool book that you want to make. I think I'm already looking at this thinking, like, I have this children's book that I've been meaning to write for a long time called 1 Million Kisses, and now it's time. Yeah, totally. Hey, maybe you can sing it because it's a book and a song.
Really?
I'll tell you about it
1
later.
Million Kisses?
1 Million Kisses.
Okay.
It's really cute.
We'll work on it.
Anyway, and then iTunes U becomes iTunes. You know what? Never mind.
You're not going to be doing that book.
You're fired a little bit.
1 million kisses on your cheek.
See, now it gets dirty.
No, I said on your cheek.
I know, but it's going to get weird.
Okay, I'll stop.
I'm pretty sure if you do it, it's going to get weird.
It'll get sexual.
iTunes U becomes an education hub a little bit more. Really, it is, in fact, exactly what they said it would be, which was an ebook and education-focused event. And don't get me wrong, I don't totally want to harsh the textbook buzz. I think there are some big hurdles. I do think, though, that is an industry that needs to be disrupted because I think students are at a disadvantage because their books are not up to date. I just don't know that one company, especially a company that is most famous for lock-in to its own products, can necessarily be trusted to kind of create the revolution. There's a lot of strings attached to that revolution.
There's also, sometimes when you look at that stuff, it also comes down to relationships, and Apple has pretty strong, solid relationships in the education market. So it's, again, just like we saw in the consumer market, it's an adoption thing.
Yep.
If we have major universities and schools, and right now the iBooks store textbooks are only for high school level books,
exactly.
right? We're not seeing college level textbooks yet, and those typically get updated year after year. And for people that have been in college or are in college, you buy a book, there's a new book every year. The colleges don't hold on to those books for 5 years. You buy a new book every year. So it's a little different model over there. But here with iTunes U, this is going to be a service now, really their go-to hub that allows professors to interact with their students, post messages, sends out assignments, and share their syllabi, right? Multiple. But this, again,
That's kind of cool.
I think it's really cool. They talked about universities that are already on board with this, Duke, Stanford, Yale, and others. But again, this is coming down to that tech divide where you still have in college, let's say someone like my liberal arts teacher, they're not going to probably be saying, you got to use iTunes to find out everything about my class. It's like taking the analog and digital and putting all that responsibility in those two different worlds on one teacher who's already out of their minds teaching 5 different classes.
Right.
So there's a challenge there. I like the fact that we're trying to do this push into the digital age with education, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot longer than I think people think. It's not going to happen like in a year where every teacher's going to be having digital platforms and doing everything digitally. It's going to take time.
It's going to take a long time for sure.
Yeah.
And it all happening in Apple's garden is a little unnerving to me, but we'll see how it starts.
Not to Apple.
Right. No, it's great to them. Yeah. I don't know when we have seen the Occupy movement talk a lot about what happens when you turn education into a business, and when you try, and it's not as though the textbook industry has not been profiting, but anybody who buys a book can use that book, right? It's not like you buy a book and you can only use it on the textbook maker's desk. Like there's a lot of interlocking parts there that one company wants to make money off of, and And you see Duke and Yale and Stanford pull even farther away from every state university, and there's a lot of this is fraught. This is very fraught.
Like the Mercedes-Benz of colleges are the ones that are like, we're on board.
Right.
Where's the state systems, the JC systems, like
there's the 1%ers
it's creating
pull even farther away.
It's creating a divide just by looking at who's supporting this right out of the gates. It's not like Apple said, De Anza College in Cupertino, would you like to be one of our schools, one of our pilot program schools?
They're like, no, thank you. We cannot afford 3,000 iPads.
So if they're willing to donate iPads to all these institutions, awesome. But we'll see.
All right, moving on. I am pretty sure I did. You know what? I have to say, I fell into the trap. I knew. I knew that yesterday was SOPA blackout day. Obviously, I was super for it. In fact, I participated in my own way by being at jury duty and therefore unable to publish or tape anything.
You were blacked out from the internet.
I was blacked out from the internet by being at jury duty. And then I went to Craigslist yesterday, just like do. Oh crap! But good for you, Craigslist. So okay, it was like watching an eclipse online. Like late Tuesday night, all these sites started to go down. Wikipedia went, after a slight delay, switched over to a page informing people about SOPA. Craigslist went down. WordPress took their site down. All the cheeseburger network sites went down. A lot of people took their personal blogs down. It was I have to say, very inspiring. It seemed like a hugely successful, coordinated protest against the Stop Online Piracy Act and the Protect Innovation and Piracy Whatever Act, the PIPA, the Senate version, PIPA. And it seems to have had an impact.
Are you saying that the internet community as a whole was able to maybe let these senators see what was, because at the hearings they didn't hear anything from our side.
Exactly. They didn't even bother to call in supporters.
Right?
Yep. Mark Zuckerberg yesterday formally came out against SOPA for the first time and said Facebook is opposed to SOPA. And then the Senator Roy Blunt, Missouri Republican, said, quote, "I am withdrawing my co-sponsorship for the Protect IP Act." Senator John Boozman withdrew his name as a co-sponsor of Protect IP. Senators are fleeing like rats from a sinking ship when it comes to their support of SOPA. John Carter, a Texas Republican listed as a SOPA sponsor, quote, "reserves judgment on the final bill at this point." I will not support a bill unless my constituents are comfortable with it, said sponsor Tim Griffin, an Arkansas Republican. I was truly inspired and proud of the tech industry overall. I mean, I feel like it was not just like angry bloggers,
No.
It was like our own little internet spring.
Here's the beauty of this, and I don't think it can be understated enough. In the past, when there was an issue that you had with your senator or representative, you would have to write a letter or make a phone call.
Right.
And how many times are they going to actually see that and feel that? By the time you do that, the issue's probably been passed or voted on by that time. But here, they were able to see the entire collective. Like, I think there was something around like Google said there were like something like 4.5 million people signed an anti-SOPA petition.
Yeah, and they only needed like 300,000.
4.5
Right.
million people participated in that. If you talk about some of the Twitter numbers, there were over 2.4 million SOPA-related tweets, all right? That's going to catch someone's eye and someone's attention. And the fact is that these senators, 13 and counting, pulled out of their support after they realized, why do our citizens and constituents feel this way? They actually probably looked at the issue a little more closely instead of just listen to what they heard at their hearings or how these bills were shaped and proposed by the studios that helped to create them.
Yeah, it was pretty remarkable. And then in addition to all of the online petitions and the blackouts, I do want to point out that the calls did roll in to Senate and House offices, and I think that is just as important. Apparently, the phone lines were flooded yesterday. I mean, they were getting hundreds of calls an hour from people expressing their support. It's really interesting because a buddy of mine from Consumer Electronics Association told me that he was at an event with the RIAA CEO, Carrie Sherman, and he came up to him and said, "Hey, buddy, you guys are doing a great job with this little grassroots thing you got going here. this little
Really?
grassroots
Little tiny thing.
no idea, right? This was a while ago for sure. But no idea that, look, America may have its differences, right? Like politically, and when it comes to, there's none of this should be taken to mean that the people on the internet are pro-piracy or pro-stealing. But no, America is not about extremism. Like once you come along, recording industry and movie industry, and you're purely and brazenly trying to protect your outmoded business model by censoring speech online, we're not having it. And I thought that was remarkable that was just an easy call, right? Like you don't get to break the internet because you refuse to innovate. That's just not happening. That's too far in one direction. And I have to say, like, I think in general, that's usually how America responds. All right, when we go too far in one direction, that's it. We recognize it and we come together and we make it stop. And that was great.
And we're going to still see these bills rear their ugly head, but there's going to be, hopefully, with this, a new reshaping of what they are. Because in any negotiation, if it's too heavy on one side, you in any type of negotiation, even a bill, you kind of have to get it where both sides are unhappy about the final bill, meaning everyone's not getting exactly what they want, but they're getting some of those things. And there's going to be a way where there will be some sort of middle ground. It's not going to sway completely to our side, where SOPA and PIPA will not even exist. I think they will still exist in some way, shape, or form. But we're gonna be able to come to a middle ground instead of this ridiculous bill that pretty much cripples and disables. And when you tell people we're gonna take away some of your internet, and someone goes, "Why?" Because we can, doesn't work.
Because for the money.
Also, can we show this little picture thing real quick?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so just this is a little fun thing about who violates what SOPA is talking about. Well, we all know that Lamar Smith, who is the author of SOPA, and he has his own official campaign website. And what happened is there's a background image Lamar Smith was using of this kind of forest outdoors image, and someone managed to locate the image and find out who the original photographer was, DJ Schultz, and it looks like Lamar Smith forgot to credit the author of the image in the back of his campaign website that he was using.
The headline was
copyright violator.
That's his official website. And then
Copyright violator.
This is the image.
Take it down. Take it down, Lamar.
The headline was like, the awkward moment when you break the kind of law that you're trying to force onto America. Although, let's be fair, we all know that Lamar Smith did not write that legislation. The RIAA and the MPAA wrote that legislation. Yeah. He barely even knew what was in it. They asked him about it, and he was like, DNS what now?
There probably wasn't even DNS in
I
that
don't follow.
bill. They didn't even use that acronym.
But like, don't get cocky. If I had to caution anyone at this point, it would be don't get cocky, because the MPAA has not backed down, even though the number of senators and Congress people withdrawing their support for these two bills is just like up, ticking up. The MPAA denounced all of the blackouts and protests yesterday as, quote, stunts. They said it was an abuse of power. They were taking swipes against Wikipedia on Twitter. One of the like an RIAA person on Twitter said, all these kids are now going to have to do real research and check their facts. Like,
on Wikipedia,
really?
Yeah.
These guys are not hearing it. These bills are not dead, and there is no question that this fight is going to continue. I think that intellectual property fights are going to characterize the coming year and beyond. And it's not. And in fact, there's every possibility that some of these measures will be replaced with sort of quieter, more dangerous measures. Adam Curry blogged this week about a sort of parallel effort in Congress to force everyone who registers a domain anywhere to use their real verifiable information, right? So that there's no way that you can register a domain under a fake name or with a shell corporation or something like that, that you have to be tracked down personally for every website that you create. That's when you think about it, that's a sweeping change, pretty dangerous precedent.
That's going to take a long time, too, to vet all those people.
And it's going to take a long time. Yeah, and an expensive one. But as soon as your website is tied to you directly, forget about it, Wikipedia, right? Or WikiLeaks. Forget about any site that wants to do whistleblowing. Forget about any site that wants to promote dissent in a dictatorship. As long as ICANN controls those domains and they can track it right to you, there's still a problem there. So it's not... Nobody won anything, but it was it was a really good battle.
We're happy that we all participated in this, but
keep it
the
up.
battle rages and wages on.
It's basically like keep it up.
Yeah,
definitely keep it up.
But it ain't over.
It ain't over.
SOPA ain't over.
But
SOPA
that
ain't OPA.
That was an exciting day online, and I think it was really a turning point for kind of online activism. Like everybody was reporting on it, and it was a big deal. It's good stuff.
It's good stuff.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we actually do have more news.
Oh, my gosh.
I know, it feels
like
a
news show?
Talking for like
Amazing.
an hour. When we come back, the death of a childhood brand.
It's still alive.
Kinda.
Just barely. It's like limping.
Facebook's Insta spam and AT&T just doing some evil stuff like they do.
Screw them.
Like they do.
Sponsor our show. All right, guys, welcome back to Buzz Out Loud, CNET's amazing podcast of an indeterminate length. Miss Mollywood in the house. See, hi.
It's so indeterminate.
It's we don't even know how indeterminate it is. All right, Stephen Beecham in the house.
Howdy.
If we ever did figure out a time, then would we be the determinators?
I'm gonna if we had the little dun-dun, I'll give you that one. All right, guys.
I bet it's on this thing.
It is actually.
That's actually more appropriate. That's the most
Molly,
appropriate.
shoot me now.
That's the first time you guys use that.
I hate this thing.
It is pretty annoying. All right, guys, back to the stories. Kodak.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago, we talked about how Kodak was pondering, filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. That has happened now. They announced it officially last night that it's filed for Chapter 11. The company is hoping to emerge from bankruptcy in 2013, so that's about a year and a half or so. They hope to get out of there. It secured $950 million in debtor-in-possession financing from Citigroup. It'll allow them to keep operating during this restructuring period. They've also appointed Vice Chairman of the FTI Consulting, Dominic DiNapoli, as their Chief Restructuring Officer. So we'll see what happens. They did make they have been involved in previous attempts with some of their patents.
And they're still doing that.
Yeah, and they're still doing. I believe they have they're working on things against HTC. I think Apple's one of the people that they've claimed violate some of their patents. There were also talks about Kodak potentially just looking to sell their patent treasure chest, because we've seen that happen with a lot of companies. But at this moment, they're hoping to emerge and come back in 2013 from bankruptcy. We'll see what happens. But again, we talked about a couple weeks ago the iconic Kodak brand.
Yeah, there was something on Twitter at that time that said, thanks for developing all this amazing camera technology and putting yourself out of business.
Well, here's some of these numbers here.
Appreciate that.
During this time, right, they're trying to shift over their model. They've closed 13 manufacturing plants, 130 processing labs, reducing their workforce by 47,000 employees. This is since 2003, which is a gradual, just kind of the gradual decline in how technology has changed the game.
Yep. You got to keep up. It can't all just be patents. But I don't even know how to characterize this next bit of news. But Facebook held an event yesterday, and as far as I know, they didn't talk about log normalized graphs at all.
That's because they didn't report about that, because that's the most boring part.
Good point. Nobody even went.
Yeah.
The Facebook announced 60 new partners that have integrated their applications with Open Graph, which is the underlying technology that allows companies to engage in quote unquote frictionless sharing on Facebook.
We love that.
We love that.
We love frictionless sharing.
Friction is what makes it fun.
Oh my God.
And they opened up Open Graph to everyone, so everyone can now engage in spamming. I mean, sharing via. No, seriously, like I don't even think people realize the tsunami of spam that is now headed your way on Facebook as everyone starts.
You know that ticker?
Ticker? Yeah.
That ticker got a whole lot more spammy. That thing is not going to be going like tick, tick. It's going to go.
And you know that at some point, yeah, exactly. You know, at some point, one of these apps is going to cut a deal with Facebook. Like, just let us, maybe we can share our stuff in the news feed just this one time. And then pretty soon it creeps on over and it's not in the ticker anymore. I mean, that's not even really clear at this point whether all of that sharing is going to happen in the ticker. Sharon Vaknin had a good how-to about the things to know before you start using Facebook timeline apps, because these apps are all rolling out in conjunction with the slow and steady creep of the timeline into everyone's Facebook experience. Man, Facebook's gotten complicated.
I've noticed a lot less people posting on there recently. Just since the timeline thing came out with that big giant picture that everyone hates.
Wait! You guys hate that big picture?
I do.
No, honestly, I like it.
It's not the picture; it's how heavy the page is now. And then it's trying to load your entire history every time. And then when they rolled that out to mobile, like to put the timeline interface on the freaking mobile app.
That's here.
Try to go to your own profile on your mobile app, and a half an hour later, tell me what you think. Like it is just
it takes
ridiculous.
a long time. A long time to load.
Anyway, though, back to the 60 companies: TripAdvisor, Ticketmaster. Every time you buy tickets to a concert, AutoPost, Dig, Kobo, Zynga, Rotten Tomatoes, BuzzFeed. There's a whole long list of the companies that have signed up for Open Graph. So just be aware when you start using these apps that there is a possibility that you might start sort of insta-sharing everything that you're doing. It will probably ask you for permission to authorize the first time. But once you authorize the app, it will never ask your permission again. You can go in and change those settings, but you'll have to do that yourself manually.
There's also, just because everyone's worried about how much will these things share, there's some of the apps that are going on, like fab.com. They've talked about how some of your purchases will be hidden. So there's certain private things. For example, fab.com sells maybe some like intimate products that won't instantly be shared or post on your timeline or wall, which is nice. One other thing that I found kind of cool, but then at the same time kind of creepy, is the fact that companies can also, how do I say this, share within other Open Graph companies. So they use an example where, let's say you're listening to Spotify and you also are using Ticketmaster, and both of those are apps that you're using with the Open Graph. Ticketmaster can tell that you're listening to a concert from, let's say,
Backstreet Boys,
and then tell you from the Ticketmaster side when Backstreet Boys concerts are going to be available in your area. That's kind of cool, but then it's also kind of creepy at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's a little too much, but the fact is that these apps can also talk to one another with the Open Graph platform.
Right.
So it's really up to you if you want to be involved. I feel like I'm less and less involved in Facebook because it just gets more and more just creepier and creepier. It's just too much now. It's too much.
It's too much, and it's so much that it's beyond. It's now such a complex system that it's beyond understanding, right? Like I don't understand what this app is doing and why some stuff is in the ticker and some. I mean, I do, right? But it's sort of like it gets more. The more and more confusing it gets to the everyday user, it just becomes like, I don't like this. And they just hear this sort of constant noise from the background, from the media that's like, I don't know, privacy and sharing and blah, blah, blah. I just think that I think they're in danger of driving away their users at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm using Google Plus either, but it's just that I don't want all of that stuff to be there anymore.
No, I'm kind of just realizing that exactly. Like, I don't know. Maybe I don't need this.
But I don't think we're alone. I feel like there's a point where we've become a little oversaturated with this whole social media wave, and people are starting to pull back a little. There's still plenty of people jumping online, but there's a point where after you've shared so much, you're like, I don't want to share as much anymore.
Yeah.
So
maybe, I don't know. We need to get some like kids on this show. I'm kind of curious. By the way,
That's a good idea.
Seriously, Google Plus? God, it is awful. It is so spam. It is so filled with spam.
I don't even sign on.
It is just, I mean, I'm trying to use it and I really want to like it. And there are a lot of followers there, although I think that most of them are spammers. And it's really overwhelmed. They have got to get a handle on that because it's kind of a nightmare to use. And so it's just not, as people like are looking for an alternative to Facebook, Google Plus needs to figure out how to make Google Plus a nicer place to be.
I've got an alternative. Call your friends. Your real friends.
I don't understand.
Call them. Text them.
Oh, okay. I
Skype
could do
'em.
that.
Text them. I did go on Google Plus for the first time just to try out Hangout, like, just because I'm like, I guess I'll go on Google Plus.
Yeah.
Like, my friend's like, let's hang out. I'm like, all right.
I'm not doing anything else.
I use Google Plus exclusively to just curate all the podcasts I produce. So if you want to go follow me on Google Plus, you'll see every podcast show I produce.
Hey,
That's
see?
all I
Well,
do.
there you go.
That's a good
there
tip.
You go.
It's curious.
Yeah.
That's a power tip by Stephen Beacham.
Pro tip.
Danny in Danny in the chat room says my kids are kind of bored with Facebook. They only use it because they don't have cell phones and they can only find their friends via Facebook. More and more, I actually agree. More and more, I'm just using Facebook as like a little mini LinkedIn. I'm like, oh well, I can't remember that person's email, so I'll just send them a Facebook message.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
All right.
interesting.
It has its uses.
Let's move on, shall we? AT&T just can't stop being. I don't know. They've retooled their data plans.
Retooled.
And by retooled, we mean upped the pricing across the board for data plans, as they've done away completely with unlimited plans. I think even grandfathered unlimited plans, right? We have an angry email about that. There's no there's no change for
Grandfathers.
current customers. So if you are on an unlimited plan, which is already throttled, you can stay on it. But if you get a new plan or a new contract, you will go over. So now, currently, you could get 200 megs per month for $15, 2 gigs for $25, or 4 gigs for $45. All three plans are getting a $5 price increase. So they go up to 300 megs, 3 gigs, and 5 gigs. So they get more expensive, but you now get more data.
So even though I really feel for a majority of people, they don't really use 200 megs of data, like for a majority.
Even 200 megs? They probably use that.
No. I'm saying not on Wi-Fi. I'm saying just through the data carrier. If
Right.
you ask a lot of people, not too many people. Well, our audience is different, but let's say I don't even use 200 megs of 3G data on my phone because we're primarily on Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
right? So AT&T is saying, you know what? We're going to give you 300 megs. We're going to charge you $5
More.
Although again, most people don't go over 200.
I have to say, although I prefaced this with saying that AT&T was being evil again,
Yeah.
they are increasing prices, but the overall cost per byte across the board is lower, and they are increasing their data caps, which I actually think is kind of a good thing, right? I mean, we keep complaining that companies are doing away with unlimited data and that they're throttling back at a time when everybody's using more data. AT&T at least is saying, yeah, everybody's using more data, so we're going to offer higher data plans.
I think this.
And then you should, as a consumer, you're absolutely right, Brian. Like every consumer should track how much they actually use, because there's a very good possibility that you only need the $20 plan.
That's
you
what I'm-
don't need the $45 plan.
That's what I'm saying. I guess what I'm trying to say is that for that higher end, like you said, increase the data caps, give you more bytes or at a better price. Yeah, that's for someone that uses data heavy. But when all of my friends, for the most part, on the 3G or Edge data or whatever they're using is under 200, this is really just them pushing that higher so that they can make a little money. And then what makes me look at it from the outside even more is that, look, AT&T said we were going to acquire T-Mobile and everything would be great. We're going to offer you guys more services. But here it's like, what, a month after that whole thing fell apart?
Yeah.
And they're increasing the prices on data plans.
Well, they got to make up for
Like-
the loss that they took.
Yeah.
$9 billion.
But that just
Right, for a
goes,
$1 billion
if they
loss.
really, if they were really okay, we wouldn't, I feel like we wouldn't, it's not like all the other carriers are doing this right now. AT&T is the one doing this.
Yeah.
So
it's not the there was a a pretty good tweet about this yesterday or the day before that said if they were really feeling this is the kind of thing you can only do when you already have a very dominant position in the marketplace, right? When it's you versus Verizon and everybody else is so far behind. Because if you're really feeling the competitive pressure, you lower prices. You try to be more competitive. I mean, what AT&T could have done to win over customer goodwill, to demonstrate that they are actually concerned about pricing in a price war, is raise the data limits without raising prices, right? Like, data is actually pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So that said, though, it's not the most unreasonable thing I ever heard. You're getting more for your money. And in fact, you are getting more for your money now than you were under the previous plans. It's cheaper per byte.
If you want to pay extra. If that's okay with you.
What? Well, you don't have to pay $45. At least that's an option.
Yeah.
I think Verizon got rid of their lower end option. They used to have a $15 plan and now they don't. So they're in line with Verizon at this point. Okay. Moving on. In other smartphone and carrier. And now we're totally like, what? I hate them, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you guys, real quick, did you guys get the AT&T message, your data usage is among the top 5% of users?
No.
Data speeds for this cycle may be reduced. Have you got that?
Oh, you mean the throttling?
You're being
the throttling.
throttled.
Yeah, being
The
throttled, but
throttling.
I have unlimited because I'm grandfathered in.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, there's no
Yep.
such thing as unlimited. They still throttle you.
It's
Such a bummer.
it's unlimited throttled.
It's unlimited throttled. Exactly.
It's unlimited throttled.
Yeah.
and guess what? We pay for that.
You've just been throttled.
That's funny. And my friend posted like a screenshot of that on Facebook with that message from AT&T, and he just wrote under it, "F you AT&T," and I thought it was funny.
It's unlimited throttled. It's the new plan. It's the new buzzword. Forget 4G confusion.
Showtime.
Unlimited throttled.
All you care about is your unlimited throttle plan. Not available to
geez.
new subscribers. Unlimited throttle is not available to new subscribers.
Coverage may vary depending on your region or location.
A new survey reveals that Apple's iOS smartphone operating system is closing in fast on Android.
Dun dun dun.
It is, and they mean it specifically on iPhone, and this is not an iOS across the board. Because I was like, oh, well, they just mean iPod Touches too, but I don't think they do. Because the survey was conducted by Nielsen and found that among Americans over the last 3 months who bought new smartphones, 44.5% bought an iPhone versus 46.9% who bought an Android phone.
How's that BlackBerry doing?
4.5% of it?
Did you say 45? Oh, sorry, 4.5.
4.5, yeah.
My bad.
Windows phone was not mentioned. The survey stands in stark contrast to an earlier. Well, their phone just came out.
I know, but it's still even
It
though
still is brutal,
It's
actually.
still
They've
funny
had
when
phones
the mention is it wasn't mentioned in the results. Like it's like damn, that sucks. Not even one dude.
We don't even know if they asked about it. It just didn't come up.
That's always
But
disturbing.
there was a survey taken in October, just recently in October, and polled Americans who bought a new smartphone within the previous 3 months. At that time, 25% had bought an iPhone, while 61% went with an Android handset. So the iPhone sales, and let's not kid ourselves, it's because it's on more carriers now, for
It's
God's
cheaper.
sake. iPhone sales are starting to creep back up to Android levels.
Well, they have the new iPhone model that came out just before then, and also they have
Yeah.
the cheaper iPhone where you can get one for $99 on contract, or even one without for no
Exactly.
price. So that's going to make up a lot of that space. If someone says I could get an iPhone with just a contract, yeah, I'm going to get it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the 4S was probably the biggest driver of those numbers for sure. But, I mean, there's no question. It's kind of interesting because what you just pointed out is that, like, there are now a lot of choices in the iPhone market,
You mean choice actually is a good thing?
which is why Android was outselling iPhone so much because there were so many choices. Now you have many choices of carriers, many choices of actual device, and price points.
Amazing.
What a concept. We'll see. And then in funny news of the week.
Amazing. This is why the internet is amazing.
Oh, I love it.
Not only can we have senators pull out from their support of SOPA and PIPA,
Yep.
we can also be set on fire by Rob Lowe.
Just in the middle of that exact same day, right? Like all we're talking about is SOPA online and whatever.
He's concerned with
And then all of a sudden there's this little trending thing that's just like, what? Rob Lowe? What? Because Rob Lowe, possibly needing a little attention,
Hasn't come out in a
tweeted.
sex tape for like years.
He tweeted yesterday on Wednesday, January 18th, that he heard a rumor from his quote people that Peyton Manning The quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts was retiring now because he had that season-ending neck injury at the beginning of this year, of 2011. Yep, and then he was like, "Well, wait, I mean, that's what I hear, but I'm not sure." And like that, I've heard that from my sources, and they're
What are you
usually pretty
guys
good.
hearing?
He goes, "Let's hope my info is wrong, Colts fans. I don't like being wrong, but this time I'm hoping." What are you hearing, NFL?
You know what?
Weird.
He should
And
get
then the
he should
internet
get
went
in,
crazy.
he should get in the Apple rumor business.
He really should.
I think that could be a new career for Rob Lowe.
He really should.
My sources tell me.
Archie Manning, father of Peyton and Eli, laughed when he heard that Rob Lowe said Peyton will retire. Quote, he said, "No, he ain't retiring. I think you would have told me." Although, I have to admit, everybody's making fun of Rob Lowe, but I think he is right. And I think that Peyton Manning should retire because if he ever gets hit again, he's going to die, and nobody needs to see that.
Well,
I'm serious. He is going to retire. Like, I bet Rob Lowe just heard this too soon, and everybody was like, "Are you kidding me? You
look,
cannot be tweeting
let's
that crap."
let's just, because it's the end of the show, let's just shift from tech and just spend 30 seconds on football. They're going to draft Andrew Luck.
Exactly. But Peyton's not going to retire.
Yeah.
They need Peyton on the roster so that he can train and mentor Andrew Luck.
That's if Payton wants to do that.
Payne has a very lucrative career in commercials. He's a very handsome guy.
Oh, I know. And he's very smart and well-spoken. Like, he's going to be a commentator. Like, he's going to be fine. He's not like Brett Favre, who clearly has nothing else to do, and that's why he keeps coming back.
Take pictures of his wee-wee. Brett Favre, he has plenty to do. He's part of the internet generation, too.
Yeah.
Text message.
Peyton's going to do like a working retirement. Like, he's going to suit up, but he's never going to play again.
He's going to be like Joe Montana. He's going to be in commercials forever.
I pray that he never plays again because I don't want to see that guy die on the field. He's a nice man. He does a lot for Big Brother. I interviewed him one time when I lived in Nebraska. He's a really good guy.
Awesome. All right.
In other football news, not football, in other celebrity tweet news, what was the thing about Marky Mark? Didn't he tweet yesterday that no, it was an interview, never mind. But it was all over Twitter that Marky Mark had said that he could have stopped 9/11.
Okay. Wait. Are you dead serious right now?
He was on Howard Stern.
Come on.
He was on Howard Stern, and he was like, if I'd been on that play, like, horrible, not funny, right? For one thing, poor taste, Marky Mark.
Crazy.
If I was on that plane, remember he's being held up by wires
That he could
in
have
his movies.
He could have prevented it.
He could have, yeah.
He said he would have stopped the attacks from happening if he had been on.
Wow.
Guys, sit down.
Let's just stop.
Yeah, all Yar is famous.
I wasn't listening. I don't know the context. It could have been in jest, but I just don't say that.
Don't say that.
All right.
All right, should we move straight on down to
I think
the...
people tuned out yet? No,
I
they're
think
here.
no, but let's move
You're
straight
here.
on down to the feedback.
Oh, sorry.
I fooled you. We're going to go feedback.
Boom!
There we go.
Amen. All right, we talked about this earlier. This email comes to us from our buddy Nate. Nate says, "High data usage alert. Really, AT&T? Really? The only reason I tolerated your crappy service for so long was that I was grandfathered into an unlimited iPhone data plan. So really, after my whole family has iPhones on this same plan, and we're all on 2-year contracts, you now are going to start throttling our data speeds in addition to capping the data on the new lines. Really?" He says really a lot.
Really?
I
We
just
all
hope
do.
this lets me break my contract and move to Sprint. I'm sure the coverage is abysmal and the call quality stinks, but really?
He's in that
Is that
Saturday
any
Night Live
different
sketch.
from
He is
AT&T?
Yeah, really?
With Seth and Amy. Let me tell you this. There's no way you're going to get to break your contract over this. But
Yeah.
just do the math, right? Because sometimes you save enough money by going to because you get the cheaper phone. Like, it might be worth paying because the early termination fees are prorated. So if you're close to the end of your contract,
right.
like I've been thinking about moving over to Sprint because I only have like 4 months left of my contract. It basically would add up to like one payment.
Didn't
move over.
you break your contract to get the iPhone?
No, I bought it on eBay.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, the
Okay.
iPhone 4.
Okay.
I'm
Nice.
looking at I want you all to know, just a little update. I am keeping my eyes on the Galaxy Nexus.
Oh, no, absolutely. On
everybody-
Sprint. Galaxy Nexus on
Sprint. I'm
specifically.
totally feeling that. Exactly.
Everyone is like saying, do a price. I'm honestly waiting to do an iPhone 4S prize fight once the Samsung Nexus comes out on Sprint, specifically because they're not crippling that their e-wallet service.
Yeah.
And that phone is amazing.
I know.
The two phones that honestly, I'm going to throw out the two phones I only care about right now. I actually don't even care about the iPhone 4S because my iPhone 4 pretty much does just
I
as
know,
much.
it's like fine.
But fine, if you want to say the newest stuff, 4S and Galaxy Nexus.
Yeah.
Those are the two hottest phones right now.
I also think, getting back to that Nielsen survey, I meant to say this earlier,
Yes.
I think that a lot of the Android sales, at least among the kind of hero phone purchasers, were depressed by the fact that everybody was waiting for the Galaxy Nexus to come out. So I think it's possible that the Nielsen numbers could be a little more interesting in the next 3-month report, because iPhone 4S had come out, but there was no really comparable new cool Android phone, and Galaxy S or Nexus was obviously delay.
The Nexus on the Verizon, though, was kind of like a...
I know, kind of a letdown, because Verizon really ruined it, like they do.
All right, next email.
Cameron writes in and says, lately I've been hearing that CNET supports SOPA. Is that true?
Do we even have to justify this with
There
an
you have
answer?
Actually, our chat room was asking us a lot because CBS has been listed as one of the companies that supports
Correct.
SOPA. CBS as a content company, it actually wouldn't be particularly surprising unless Moonves is death on online piracy, right? He is super, he's very hardcore on that issue. And
We
I
get
think
personal emails from him.
we do a lot. So I think that CBS Corporate probably has been listed as a supporter of SOPA. I suspect that they're reconsidering because it's kind of one of those we support stopping online piracy, right? That was an easy thing to put your name on. And as more details come out, who knows what the corporate stance is right now. I can tell you that CNET, obviously, we don't. And we have been allowed to say whatever we want, from Declan McCullough to our show to Reporters Roundtable to, most of the CNET staff has been pretty outspoken against SOPA because we're part of the technology community. And kudos to CBS for valuing what we do as a website. Or not listening. Hopefully that's not the case. And letting us, maintain our editorial integrity on this matter. Unlike the Wall Street Journal, which posted an op-ed that one can assume was written word for word by Rupert Murdoch.
Oh, yeah.
They came out for SOPA, in favor of SOPA and PIPA. There is no chance that Murdoch didn't write that crap for them. No chance.
That's genius. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. We need to reiterate for those of you that didn't hear us 2 weeks ago, there is no way in hell that we support SOPA or PIPA.
Right.
And if you want to talk about just really quickly, there was a list of a lot of these companies. It goes even beyond media companies. We have companies like Liz Claiborne, L'Oreal, Lucky Brand Jeans. These are companies whose things like counterfeit goods. There also has to be a distinction between counterfeit goods and intellectual property, clearly defined in the SOPA and PIPA bills. But there are companies that are not media companies that are also supporting this bill. And until they realize the ramifications of it, maybe some of them will drop off as well.
Because all of these companies are rightly concerned about piracy and counterfeiting.
Yeah.
Period. Right? And so are we. Nobody here is saying that everything should be free and information should be free. Don't get me wrong, the entire retail industry realized decades ago that theft is a cost of doing business. That is the case, right? And you have to structure your business around it and figure out part of that's just an actuarial table kind of thing.
Yep.
And I think that the digital distribution industry, the content industry, has had a hard time figuring out that math when it comes to digital distribution.
I'm curious about the math because I know that when I worked in retail, loss prevention was accounted. We try to keep it somewhere under 10%. When you think about it, 10% is a pretty hefty number.
That's a high number.
That's a high number.
Yep.
But, somewhere between 10 to 15%, specifically, when you're talking about Apple stores. I mean, when I was working there and in other places, though, but around 10 to 15% loss prevention is factored in.
Yep.
I wonder if someone could do a breakdown of the billions of dollars that they're losing versus what they're making, because we've heard in the past movie studios had their most successful years.
Oh, yeah.
All right, people are still pirating and copying movies. Now, we can't it's hard to put a specific number on that, but I would be curious if it was around 10 to 15%, maybe 20, but I don't think it's 50%. I don't think it's 40, but it's probably more around a 15 to 20. So I'm curious.
Well, and it's really, really hard to do those numbers accurately.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is creating a model for distribution that is a true alternative to piracy. We're still not all the way there yet. I mean, people were pirating music in droves, and it did decimate the record industry because the record industry didn't provide an alternative for almost a decade. It took them almost 10 years to stop suing people and provide an alternative to Napster when they finally got on board with Apple in the iTunes store. No wonder they suffered so many losses. They weren't in the store. You couldn't give them your money to purchase the product that you wanted. No wonder people found a technological solution. That happens, right? And a lot of people didn't even realize they were breaking the law. They were like, this is the only place to get music online. Okay, here I go.
Yeah.
So until we have true parity in terms of the offerings, both illegally and legally, it's really hard to make that argument. And to be perfectly frank, the content industry has spent a lot of years trumping up numbers that they've had to apologize for, or at least had to back away from because they were found to be like patently untrue, or had zero basis in fact. So anyway, no, we don't. The quick answer, no, we don't support that.
Well, we're not going to give you a quick answer.
Who, us?
What? What's that all about?
All right, let's wrap it there. I think it's been an awesome show, you guys. We're super happy to be back in the bunker.
Yeah,
it just feels like we haven't been here in a long time, even though we had 3 shows from CES. We've been in your ears for like crazy, but
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. Look, the chat room coming out full force again.
we missed you guys.
Showing the love, showing the support. So we love you guys, and I think that's gonna do it for today. Yeah.
A note, though, a quick note on our chat room before we go.
Oh,
For
yeah.
those of you who come out and join us live, thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you here. You all know that for years and years and years now, Jeannie, our chat room mama,
Pretty much.
has been the queen bee of the Pound CNET Fans IRC channel. And Jeannie, I'm happy to report that her home business with her husband's taken off, and they're busier than they've ever been, but she won't be in the chat room as much.
Yeah.
So please take a moment, come back on Thursday if you haven't been in the chat room for a while. Next week, and take a moment to just drop Jeannie a note that says thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it
Thank
so
you.
much. I mean, we have nothing but love
Thank
for
you.
Jeannie. She's
We
come
love
out
you.
to our events. She came out to our Buzz Out Loud 200th episode.
She's awesome. She was in New York
Or
for
1000th
Gotham.
episode.
Yeah,
1000th episode. What am I saying?
episode.
1000th episode. I mean, she's been a huge part of the Buzz Out Loud family, longtime listener. So we just appreciate everything she's done for us from the bottom of our heart. So, but we wish
Yes.
you nothing but the best.
We love you, babe.
And we will see you. It's not like she's gone.
No, but she
No,
won't be
she'll be
there
there.
quite as often. So
When she's here, it'll be a treat.
exactly,
It'll
when
be
she's here, it'll be like a giant treat.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, we'll
absolutely.
see you guys next week when we will have Computer Love because it's the last show of the month.
We still doing that.
Doing it. All right, talk to you soon, guys.
All right.
Bye.
See you guys.